We are the Muslim Ummah, and each day that goes by, the harder we try. In gratitude we pray to Allah. Chosen as part of the best of mankind, we spread the word of Islam. Each man at each hour, in awe of his power, each flower, each tree.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to episode 7 of this beautiful series, the Ottoman heritage, the Islamic heritage of Europe, but in that case here we have been discussing in the last couple of episodes the Ottoman heritage. I am Dr. Stef Keris Abu Yasser, and I've done quite some research in this field, and I've written a book which is the following book, Europe's Forgotten Ottoman Heritage. Now, I have shown it several times in the last episodes, and if you want to know more about what happened in Greece actually, and how many myths people are mentioning about Greece and about the Ottomans, then please read this book. Now, we are going on with the Ottoman Empire. A very important part of the Ottoman Empire is coming now. After Sultan Muhammad, who was the one who was Al-Fatih, the opener of Constantinople, after he came and he did the wonderful, well, conquering, if you want to call it conquer, we would like to refer to it as an opening. He opened Istanbul to Islam and the Byzantine Empire to Islam. Now, after this happened, Bayezid II, who was the next Sultan, took over. And this happened in 1481. 1481, Bayezid II, as you can see him here, and his Togra on his right side. Now, Bayezid II was an exceptional case. He was different from the others. Why? Because he was, first of all, born in nowadays Greece. He was born in Dimotiko, which is the little town I was talking about before, where actually the first Ottoman mosque can be found still until nowadays. And this town, the Dimotiko, which in Turkish is called Dimetoka, is a border town exactly at the border to Turkey, and anybody can go and see still the pyramidical structure of the roof of this old mosque, which is closed, unfortunately. It's not open for worship, but at least you can go and visit it and you can see what kind of architecture the Ottomans used to use at the very beginning especially. Now, he was born, as I said, in this little town in Thrace, which is a province of Greece nowadays. Now, he died on May 26, 1512. His mother was Aisha Hatun. Sorry, I have to refrain this one. I made a mistake, I'm sorry about this one. Not his mother, he was married to Aisha Hatun. That's a mistake, I'm sorry. Now, Bayezid II was married to Aisha Hatun. That was his wife. Aisha Hatun was a Greek convert. Again, we are going back to the Greek roots, aren't we? Now, indeed, he also married a Greek lady, who was then the mother of Selim I. Selim was then the next Sultan who followed Bayezid. Selim I took the throne over in 1512 until 1520. Now, Selim's mother was Aisha Hatun. She was Greek, as we said again, and Selim was nicknamed Yavuz. Yavuz in Turkish basically means the steadfast. The steadfast. But in English, he is known as Selim the Grim, for whatever reason. Let's leave it like this. Let's just leave it like this. Now, Selim the Grim in English, Selim Yavuz in Turkish, which means the steadfast. Bayezid, just to come back to Bayezid II again, he played an important role, considering what I mentioned in the last episode. We were talking about tolerance. I would really like to stick a little bit to this point, the point of tolerance and acceptance of other religions, other faiths, other cultures. Because people keep saying nowadays the Ottomans were cruel, they hated the Christians, they would suppress the Greeks and the Christians and the Orthodox, they would suppress them. But in the case of Bayezid II, for example, and in other cases, but Bayezid II, again, it was an exceptional case, not only because he was born in Dimotiko, but also because he was the one who allowed the Jews to leave Spain in 1492, a very important point of the change of, basically, of the Inquisition that happened, basically, the Reconquista that happened in Spain, where the Christians were coming from the north all the way down to nowadays Andalusia, the province of Andalusia, going into Cordoba, Granada, and basically 1492, the end of the Muslim Empire in Spain and in Al-Andalus. And what happened to the Muslims and the Jews? They had to either flee or become Christians. Now, the Jews were allowed to go to the Ottoman Empire and settle there. Not only were they allowed to go to the Ottoman Empire and settle there, but they were also allowed to actually be part of the Ottoman Empire, be Ottoman citizens. Isn't it amazing if we look at 21st century Europe nowadays, if we look at 21st century America even, just see how long does it take for somebody to become European, a European citizen, a German citizen, an English, British citizen, a Spanish citizen or whatever. Look how long it takes somebody and what is necessary in order to get nationality. Now, the Jews that time under the rule of Bayezid II were straightaway accepted as equal citizens, and nobody was allowed to bother them, otherwise they would be punished for that. He accepted them as refugees and welcomed them. He granted them the permission to settle and to become Ottoman citizens, and he fought Shiism. Another important point for Sultan Bayezid II. Sultan Bayezid II was the one who was an enemy to, even more so than the other sultans, against the Shia, and he fought Shiism very strongly. Now, he allowed the first printing press to be established in Constantinople, and it was established by the Sephardic Jews in 1493. So not even a year after their arrival from Spain in the Ottoman Empire, the Jews established the printing press, and they were allowed to. Sephardic Jews, again, let's go back to this name, Sephardic. Now, Sepharad, it means basically the Jews who came from Spain. Okay? Now, two different groups of Jews we have nowadays. One of them is the Sephardic Jews who came from Spain. The other ones are the ones who came from Eastern Europe. And the Sephardic Jews are very different. Even until nowadays, they speak a language which is actually Old Spanish. And it's amazing to walk through Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, for example, or the bazaars, the main bazaar, walking through the bazaar and listening to people talking around you, listening to the shopkeepers, you will hear a lot of Spanish. Why? Because many of the shopkeepers in Istanbul's bazaar are originally Sephardic Jews, and they still speak the Old Spanish of Queen Isabella of the 15th century. It's an amazing pearl of education, of an amazing pearl of knowledge that we have there, because as linguists, and one of my majors was linguistics, as a linguist actually, if you look at Spanish, the Old Spanish, it is quite different to the newer Spanish, to the modern version of it. And seeing we don't have any tape recorders from that time to listen to the people how they were speaking, we have still some of these Jewish people from that time who still speak this language, and it's a very important point for linguists nowadays. So mashallah, this is something that was given to us by Sultan Bayezid II, and I don't think we should underestimate this. It's a very, very important point. We should just acknowledge that, the fact that that's what we have nowadays. Now, it is reported that under Bayezid's reign, Jews enjoyed a period of cultural flourishing. with the presence of such scholars as the Talmudist and scientist Mordecai Comtino. Now, astronomer and poet Solomon ben Elijah Sharbit Hazahab, Shabbatai Hen Malkil Cohen, and many others. These are all famous names within the Jewish culture. Now, the mosque in his native town of Didimotikos carries his name. In the north of Greece, the one that we mentioned before, carries still his name. It's the Sultan Bayezid Mosque. And I left it to tell you that now at the end. Now, an amazing fact I find for something like that, mashallah. We have a mosque in Greece which goes back to the time of Sultan Bayezid II, and it's still in its honor. It still carries his name. It is not open, but it is there still, and hopefully the Greek government is going to renovate it, inshallah. That's what they have been actually doing for the last couple of years. At least they were saying that. Let's hope, inshallah, it will happen. Selim I, again, Selim I, the next sultan, who was called Yavuz, as we explained, Selim the Steadfast or the Grim. He was the first Ottoman sultan to assume the title of Khalifa of Islam. The first one. He was the Caliph now. Now he was the Caliph of the Muslims. MashaAllah, and this is an honor indeed, and this happened in the 16th century, 1512 to 1520, during the time that his period was. Now Selim assembled his army and marched to Iran in 1514, where he defeated Shah Ismail at the historical Battle of Shaldiran. Now, a very important battle, because, as we said before, now the Byzantines were out of the way. There was actually no threat, no real threat from the west, but there still was a threat from the east, and the Sultan Bayezid II was fighting Shi'ism already before Sultan Selim I took over and went on with this battle against the Shia and actually won. Now, after this victory, Selim had eliminated the risk of an attack from Iran, so he could now fully concentrate on attacking the Mamluks with the results of the annexation of Syria, Palestine, and Egypt. Now, in the end, the Sham area, as it's known in Arabic, Bilad al-Sham, became also part of the Ottoman Empire. He also extended Ottoman power to the holy cities of Mecca and Medina, and now he accepted the title, the servant of the two holy shrines, in the year 1517. An amazing period of time, an amazing time where for the Muslims it was just, it couldn't get better. It couldn't get better. It was him who established the Ottomans as a sea power also. Now, he carried such an amazing title. He was the one who established the Ottomans as a sea power. He was the one who beat the Shia. He was the one who was declared the servant of the two holy shrines of Medina, of Mecca and Medina. Now, that's the best time to have a break now. Think about everything that you have heard today. Ponder over it. And inshallah, I'll see you after the break. Assalamu alaikum.
Chosen as part of the best of mankind, we spread the word of Islam.
Why does Islam say, cover the, what is the purpose of our lives? When you go to the grave, the believer will be asked 3 questions. How many, destruction of marriages, of society, of family ties have come because of statements made on someone's tongue, by what someone has said. What Sharia really is, think about it. We want you to think about it. Think about life. Think about your purpose in life. Think about the creator of this earth we live in. Think about how you should worship this creator and who this creator is. That's our aim behind this show here on Huda TV. Let's focus on what Islam itself says as a legal Islamic religious system.
whisper of the best of mankind. We spread the word of Islam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and welcome back again. Now, where did we stop before? We were talking about Sultan Selim I. Sultan Selim I, we spoke a lot about him and we mentioned a lot of positive points about him. And indeed, he was a positive sultan. But there was one thing that unfortunately was not very positive about him. So we will have to mention these things too, unfortunately. We have to try to be as neutral as possible. Now, he was the one who introduced the policy of fratricide. What does it mean? There was a policy that meant that whenever a new sultan ascended to the throne, his brothers would be locked up. Now, don't forget that before it was actually like this, that the brothers would be killed. Okay? Now, the brothers and the sons of these brothers of the coming sultan would be locked up. Now, it's not a bad thing in it itself, but in comparison to what it used to be, but it's still something trying to eliminate basically the brothers and the coming sultans, basically choosing the one who is going to be the next sultan. And this, of course, played an important role during that time. We should not forget, we're talking about the 16th century. Now, after Sultan Suleyman, after Sultan Selim I, now this is now we have come to the time of talking about Suleyman I. Suleyman I, he was the one who reigned the longest. Suleyman I was the one who actually, under his rule, as you can see here, under his rule you can see his picture and you can see his tughra next to it. Now, Sultan Suleyman was the one who basically was ruling over the biggest length and the size that the Ottoman Empire had ever gained. Okay, he was the one who was ruling over more than, and let me find the exact size of the empire. I will find it later, inshallah, and come back to this one. But he was ruling over the biggest expansion of the empire. Now, his tomb is located in the Suleymaniya complex, next to the Masjid, Suleymaniya Masjid, which is known, of course. Now, and he was the 10th and longest reigning sultan of the Ottoman Empire from 1520 to his death in 1566, which is 46 years. It's an amazing period of time. Very important things happened during this time, and I'm going to focus a bit on this one before we finish this episode. Now, he is known in the West as Suleyman the Magnificent. And this is the English title that was given to him, Suleyman the Magnificent. But in the East, he is known as Kanuni, Al-Kanuni, which means the lawmaker. The lawmaker, in Turkish as well as in Arabic. Why? Simply because he reconstructed completely the Ottoman legal system. Completely. So, he introduced a new law next to the law that existed already, the religious law, the Sharia law, basically. He introduced a new law next to that one. He was, again, a very well-educated person, like Sultan Muhammad, who was Al-Fatih. And as most of them, I just mentioned Sultan Muhammad because he was one of the most educated ones, but most of these sultans, if not even all until now, were well-educated, spoke several languages, were very civilized in their behavior and very tolerant towards their Christian subjects, Jewish subjects, and this is all again known. Now, the same Sultan Suleyman has made history and in the way he was behaving towards his Christian and Jewish subjects in the Balkans. Now, he but he put another law next to the law that existed already. And this canonical law fixed the form of the empire for centuries after his death. In a break with Ottoman traditions, however, he marries a girl who is actually originally a harem. She was a harem girl, a slave girl. Her name, Hürrem Sultan Roxelana. Now, Roxelana was originally, had Slavic origin. She actually comes from the area of nowadays Russia. And now people would refer to her as Raselazi or Roxelana for that reason, basically because she came from that area, from Russia. Their son, Selim II, succeeded Suleyman following his death in 1566. Now, Suleyman personally led Ottoman armies to conquer the Christian strongholds of Belgrade, which is the capital of Serbia, Rhodes, a very, very important island in Greece nowadays, and most of Hungary. Very important parts of the world, very important parts of the Balkans. Now, he annexed most of the Middle East in his conflict with the Persians and a large part of North Africa. Under his rule, the Ottoman fleet dominated the seas from the Mediterranean to the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. As we said, that was the biggest expansion of the Ottoman Empire ever. That was the high, the top, that was it for the Ottoman Empire. There was nothing that it couldn't get any better anymore. But of course, what happens after that? When you're all the way on the top, you will most probably fall down once, inshallah. And unfortunately, it happened. Now, he appointed an exceptional naval commander in the form of Khaireddin Barbarossa. An important person that I would like to mention. Barbarossa was of Greek origin, but he was a Muslim. MashaAllah, this is something that the Greeks negate. Okay? They just don't want to talk about it anyway. And he was the one who built the Ottoman fleet, or rebuilt it, in such a way that it equaled the number of those of all other Mediterranean countries put together. Now, when the Kanun laws attained their final form, the code of laws became known as the Kanuni Osmani. The Kanuni Osmani, the Ottoman laws. Suleiman's legal code was to last more than 300 years. Now, this was indeed the golden age of the Ottoman Empire, the time of Sultan Suleyman, not necessarily the time of Sultan Muhammad. Sultan Muhammad, of course, went into history with a wonderful, act of opening Constantinople. But Sultan Suleyman went into history as a lawgiver, a lawmaker even, and as the longest lasting sultan of the Ottoman Empire, and as the one who kept such an empire, established and kept such a vast empire together. So indeed, the golden age of the Ottoman Empire, representing the pinnacle of the Ottoman Turks' cultural achievement in the realm of architecture, literature, art, theology, and philosophy. The Sultan turned Istanbul into the center of Islamic civilization by a series of projects, including bridges, mosques, palaces, and various charitable and social establishments. Now, if I had to show you all the videos and all the monuments that were established, I think we would still be making another 100 episodes to finish the Ottoman Empire. He was the one who increased the status of Mimar Sinan, another important figure which I would like to mention, because during the time of Sultan Suleyman, Mimar Sinan became the chief architect of the empire. Mimar Sinan is known for more than 500 monuments throughout the Muslim world, that time of course, Greece including the Balkan countries. And if we look at certain structures in Greece, in the Balkan, in Albania, in Bosnia, we will find his architecture. Either he himself built them, or we will find his architecture basically there. Now, he not only built mosques, but as I mentioned before, bridges also, emirates, hammams, and madrasas, and God knows what else. We will be able to look, once we have gone to these countries, inshallah, in the future, in the different episodes, that we will focus on different countries. We will be able to focus on Mimar Sinan's architecture, and we'll be able to look closer into some of his monuments that still remain as a reminder of his great achievements. Under Sultan Suleyman, the Ottoman Empire had reached the highest level of military strength, economic riches, and territorial extent, and was the world's foremost power. Suleiman's conquests made him the ruler of the major Muslim cities, Mecca, Medina, Jerusalem, Damascus, and Baghdad. Many Balkan provinces, reaching nowadays Croatia and Austria, and most of North Africa. Now, Vienna was indeed shivering. The Austrians, the German-speaking Christians that time, especially because they were especially at the border, they were the ones who were indeed shivering and shaking and did not know how to react, what to do, and how to keep these bad Muslims out of Europe. Because they were basically already in Europe, they were an established factor of Europe nowadays. They were a European power, if not even the biggest European power. And indeed, you can imagine how these people felt this time, must have felt at the time. Another important person, quickly before we finish this important episode, Mehmet Birgevi. He was a stern opponent of any innovation in religious practices and was warning against Sufism. Now, I would like to mention this one because we know that the Ottoman Empire was built on Sufi roots, but there was a certain sheikh, Mehmet Birgevi. He was a scholar of Islam who was firmly against any kind of Sufi acts. And I would like to finish here with this wonderful episode of one of the most magnificent sultans of the Ottoman Empire. And I would like to thank you for your interest. Until I see you, inshallah, next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We are the Muslim Ummah, and each day that goes by, the harder we try. In gratitude we pray to Allah. Chosen as part of the best of mankind, we spread the word of Islam. Each man at each hour, in awe of his power, each flower, each tree, everything that we see. Spread the word, oh man, spread the word of Islam. Oh, fortunate one, paradise must be won.